So what we will do is we will start with an overview. It kind of became a tradition that we are looking at the latest news because it exploded. It is giving us some news every week. But after we look at that and try to understand what is what makes sense, what doesn't, because there is, first of all, 99% noise. People talk about what they don't know. And secondly, you don't know what's important, what's not, and mostly what's real, what's not. What's the difference? Like if I ask you, what is the difference between Chat GPT-4, because now we are used to mention versions. It hasn't been like that, that the whole humanity is watching the version of the software. Okay, so what is the difference between Hugging Face and a Chat GPT-4? Is that even the right question? So let's see, I see. Okay, good. So we answered all the questions. All the questions were about audio. So we're good about this now. And I'm closing that window. But okay, let's open the link. We are on March 17 today, and we started, and that's very important. We started with the Hugging Face, essentially Hugging Face webinar. Then ChatGPT or OpenAI came up. And now we have to talk about both because you cannot talk about just one. We will be going back to Hugging Face often because that's important. Hugging Face is one thing and OpenAI is another. Let me show you a little diagram and we'll talk about who is who. And let's see, maybe there is a diagram like that. No, I don't see it. We'll draw it. It's more fun this way anyway. So who is who? Who is who in AI? Maybe like that. And the answer is that there is Hugging Face. Hugging Face is a company. And then Hugging Face gives you the library. So it also gives you the library. What library? It's called Transformers. Transformer. I think without S. Now that's on one side of things. Market capitalization, they're not public, but market cap is 2 million. Then there is also OpenAI. They're also a company. What they give you is ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT has different versions, and the most famous are 3 and 4. We'll be only talking about 4 because what's the point of talking about the before? And therefore, that's what it gives you. Let's put the word gives you. That's what they give you. Now, with that, we understand one important thing. Hugging Face is for developers and OpenAI is for humanity. Hugging Face is really only for developers. I'll show you again how to work with it. But other people are not very interested. OpenAI is for humanity. Every reporter, not every reporter, only reporter, but every reporter for sure starts the morning with talking to ChatGPT and reports the findings. And that's what people talk about. So my wife just cut out a little paper article about ChatGPT, a combination of 2 technologies, or 3 if you look at the scissors. And the guy writes in a very funny way. So he talks about ChatGPT-3, so it's not really interesting, but the way he writes, it's very interesting, and she sends that. My wife is very electronic, but that's a special case. So that's a different area. Now let's go to the content of our scenario, of our webinar, right here. That is the announcement. Let's look at that announcement. So it came maybe a week ago at most. And they said, okay, it's much better now. Now I'll scroll down and I will go there, but I will also right away give you another link. That is the ChatGPT demo. There are a few of these demos. This one I chose here because it is shorter. It is only 6 minutes. But even so, I'm not gonna let you listen, because instead I'm giving you the link and giving it to you on the chat. Hi from Old London, that's nice. Olga Tolstova, yes, very interested in the difference, and we'll talk about this. And this is recorded. So the recording will be shared very shortly, within a day, because they need to cut off the beginning where I'm lost in the audible, and they may also cut off the end. So that's why it takes a day. But other than that, yes, it is recorded and will be given to you. Great, so please keep talking, at least on the chat. So this guy is the CEO of the company, and his presentation, I just venture my own personal opinion, is he's not formally dressed. You see he's just in a t-shirt. Of course, great shape, that you cannot deny, right? And then how many views? Like 400 comments. But the major presentation where he goes into technical issues and shows how it works for the developers, that has 1 million views. So informal presentation, but got 1 million views. I gave you the link, right? If I didn't give you the link, I'll give it again. No, I didn't give you the link. So here it is. So you can watch it at your leisure. Here it is. Or you can find a longer one on their site, 24 minutes. I'll leave that up to you, because we're here, our focus is on technical view to verify what is truth and what is fluff. So they talk about the great capabilities of the program, ChatGPT. Now, last time we talked about what is really GPT doing and how it was trained. That link is very interesting. So again, we're not going back, but we summarize very briefly that it has a human in the loop. Not in the sense that after all is said and done, the human is answering questions. No, because it's 8 billion questions potentially coming at you pretty quick. No, but it was started with the regular training and then continued with the humans. I estimate up to 1,000 people talking to it, but giving the feedback on the operation of the program straight to the program. So it was human in the loop. If you're interested, that link is also there. So you will read this article. Let me open the article. That is how it really works, by a genius, Marco Ramponi, who works at Assembly AI. Assembly AI is what I use in my system for transcription. So it's a system for the lawyers. The police talks to the gangster, and you get all the text that they said. So he knows what he's talking about. But here is a link down below. So he really gives a great analysis, and we went through that analysis last time. And there is a link about what's published, because they keep it quite undercovers. The OpenAI doesn't really tell you what's inside. Instead, they tell you that we kind of used what we said in this article. This is previous academic research. So with as much certainty as you can say, first you train it like a regular neural network, but of a special kind called transformers. And then you unleash 1,000 smart people who tell the program, no, you went wrong here, you went wrong here. And that's not that easy to do. So there is a special article about this. And supposedly that's what they use. Now, because of that, we begin to understand a very important thing. How can you fine tune it? I'll be talking about fine tuning, but in brief, first, you train the big neural network, and it is billions of parameters. They call it pre-training. So pre-training may evoke some other ideas, but they specifically use the word pre-training to denote that you train from scratch. So if you compare to pre-gaming, which is drinking before the party, I don't think that's the same. That's why it is confusing. But pre-training is really training. And then after that, they include the humans. Well, how does regular fine tuning work? Well, you take the model that is pre-trained, you download it to your computer, the whole thing. So if the model is a few gigabytes in size, you must have that much memory on your computer. And then you fine tune, which means you add additional layers to the network. Now, you cannot do this with GPT-4. That's number one. Number two, they don't even give that to you. So this is where Hugging Face comes back. And I will tell you exactly how it is coming back. But what is Hugging Face? So now we can go back here and we understand who is who and what the difference is. Hugging Face is a company that gives you a wonderful transformers library. And if only somebody gives you the pre-trained model, then you can continue. OpenAI is also a company with the market cap of 40 billion today. Oh, I said Hugging Face was 2 million. No, it's 2 billion. So OpenAI is 40 billion. And that's because Microsoft is very clever, bypasses Google in this competition, and uses them as an enormous marketing tool. So that is why you have, and the last time that I'm going a little bit to the side, trends. So if you have Hugging Face to look for, it should offer me what I'm searching for, but it doesn't. Okay, we'll say just Hugging Face. It's unique enough. That's how it's jumping, right? But compared to OpenAI. Now, OpenAI and ChatGPT have pretty much the same popularity. And you see it really trumps Hugging Face. But let us add ChatGPT. It will probably combine all the talk about ChatGPT, ChatGPT, the search term. So people know more about ChatGPT, that's interesting, than about the company itself. So seems like we should be only talking about ChatGPT, or other people are already talking about this, but in any case, we shouldn't be talking about Hugging Face. Well, that's not exactly true. I would maybe take ChatGPT out because it's confusing. Every report talks about that. That's more fair comparison. And therefore, yesterday when I was doing the quantum computing, I was trying to stop quantum computing as a series. And I said, look, quantum computing doesn't compare to ChatGPT, so we just should stay with AI. But then I noticed that OpenAI is a whole big marketing display. It's not the same. And therefore, I decided to take that out. And I saw that quantum computing is about as popular as Hugging Face. Now, let me explain why it is important. Quantum computing is the biggest news, I would say, the biggest news by importance. Nobel Prize was awarded for exactly that in 2022. So by importance, maybe it should be up there, but it's not. That just shows that maybe popularity is not the same as importance, and we can continue now that we understand who is who, we can continue with what we are going to do. So let's go back to here. And the first news was that, okay, if I told you that Hugging Face is a library for developers and ChatGPT is just one model and not a library, and plus it is not an open source model, so they don't give it to you. What's important now is, well, can I use the wonderful Hugging Face? Maybe somebody will give me the model that I can build a competitor to ChatGPT. In addition to the fact that everybody is building such a competitor anyway, and Google, its competitor is called Bard. So seeing how important that is and how cleverly Microsoft plays a marketing game, because now you see articles, chat is exciting again. And if you followed what was the last 20 years, chat was completely Google. They have 99% market share, I think. So Microsoft builds ChatGPT, their own version, Bing GPT, into their browser. And now everybody is back to their browser, which is funny because Microsoft browser is a Chromium. It is essentially the same code base as Chrome. But enough talking about that stuff. So first of all, Hugging Face announces that somebody, who is that somebody? It will tell you here. Uploaded a competitor to ChatGPT, but it is open and it is pre-trained. All right, now we're in this new area where things change weekly. We are under Hugging Face. We're under models that you can get from there, and not only get, they come with a description. The description is called the card, model card. That's a standard term. So now everybody who puts out a model also hopefully puts up a model card that tells you quite a lot. Okay, let me check the chat. Maybe, yeah, TensorFlow is a library that is underneath of that. Yes, it is there. So I'll just say it. I won't write it, but you can use one of the two libraries, either TensorFlow or PyTorch. And that is another story, how Google wanted everybody to be hooked on TensorFlow, and suddenly Facebook came with their library, which became more popular, and it is PyTorch. But Transformers, the Hugging Face major library, is, first of all, it's higher than this. It hides all the complexity. It's so easy to use that you probably won't go back unless you need to know what's inside. And you can be on PyTorch or you can be on Google library. So as you can see, everything leads to more and more investigation, but I want to go on track here. This is the model that would be a competitor to ChatGPT. Plus, you can fine tune it. In other words, you can teach it something else. So that's the subject of our talk almost every time. You take the model, if it is here, it's downloadable. And you can start by saying, oh, well, load this model. And they give you the code, how you do it. There you are. From Transformers, you import the pipeline. Pipeline is the major object in Transformers library. After that, you create a pipeline, you see here, and you give it which model. and you say it's from Together Computer. That's who created this model, and that's the name of the model. So now you see how unbelievably easy it is to do this in the code. Maybe next time we will try it, because right now it's good enough to to talk about what you should do. But next time, maybe we will actually do it. And for that, maybe I will even give you the huge virtual machines, which will have everything prepared so that you won't have to install transformers, you won't have to install every other library, but instead it will right away work for you. And here, I'm just saying that's how you can create a competitor to OpenGPT, except that the OpenGPT, as I told you, has human in the loop. So the next step will be involve human corrections, and that's not possible on this model. It's another big thing. So ChatGPT, as you can see, it's one product packaged as a product, not essentially coming to you as a library, as opposed to this one. You can't even pronounce the name, but from Together Computers. So you get this. After that, you can play with it right out of the box. It's readable, right? And you can then begin from pre-train. You're saying, okay, where is this bunch of coefficients that you already provided? And I'm going to do something. Now, you don't have to do it because the very nice Hugging Face provides it to you. For example, it suggested the very beginning of the conversation. So it says, my name is Mariama, color is blue, and I love to sing. Okay, so we'll say compute. I tried it yesterday, and I will tell you right away that it will probably continue with something. It will compose the text, but that's probably pretty loaded, and the servers are probably pretty loaded. So I let it run for a long, long time, and it didn't quite continue. That's why, well, that is nice as an idea, but doing this on your machines, first of all, makes you a good feeling that you are really running the code and can save it and take it away. After you fine tune the model, you can save it to Hugging Face if you have an account, which is free. So I do have an account. And if I go to my account, which is accomplished by going to here, you will see a couple models that I have previously trained and then saved it to Hugging Face. So that's basically how you'll do your work. All right, so we have looked at the latest news, but I think that this news will become clearer and more understood and more understandable if I'll show you a few slides. So my plan is now to show you a few slides. Where do you get them? Well, for that, you go to the webinar folder right here. You go to the webinar folder and you look for this one, Transformer Model slide. So let me download that. That's just a few slides, and that's what I will need to continue. Okay, it downloaded and right away opened. So I won't fight, I'll just use it. But before I do this, it's such a natural place to pause and look at your questions. I have one question from Peter. How to explore the fundamentals for any organization wishing to remain vigilant and safe from cyber threats? That is a good question. It has two parts. How to explore the fundamentals for an organization is part number one. The second part is cyber threats. So because the first part is just generally how can you work with this ChatGPT or with any other model if you're using the Hugging Face library. And the second is cyber threats. Good question. And right now can only give you a very generic answer, meaning you ask me how to be knowledgeable, how to explore the fundamentals. And the only answer I can give you is you need to learn for that. You need to maybe do another webinar which will answer exactly that question. So that was a great question. I'm putting it here, right? So I will answer you, and I will also suggest maybe that's another thing we will look at. Thank you. All right, but going back to our slides, I wanted to pause here, look at the participants, allow everybody to talk. And I'm not afraid that we will talk too much because, guys, you don't talk. So here I am clicking on allow to talk, but nobody's taking me up on this offer. And nobody really doing it. But you can. There you are. Okay, as much as I could, I allowed everybody to talk. So, therefore, let me stop sharing for a second. Okay, and I see you all. And if there are any questions, we can address them right now.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Mark, for the presentation. I have a question with the web browsers. So are we able to go to bing.com and check what chat GPT version it's using?
I have not tried it. I have not tried the Bing itself, but I heard that the ChatGPT version that they are using is specifically developed for them, and it's called Bing GPT.
Okay.
So you can first of all Google on Bing GPT. It's funny how things change, and
Yeah.
Microsoft themselves, they use the term Google. So you can go to Bing, and from there you will Google. But what you really mean, you will search using Bing. And what do you search for is look at Bing GPT. That will explain how to get to it and how it works. Is that your question?
Yeah, they could be using A/B testing though, so you may be lucky that as a user, you may be using Chat GPT.
Right, right.
Yeah,
You know those
beta
things.
or nightly version.
Right.
So
You're
that's
not
why I
sure
want to
exactly
check.
what you are using, and they do not give you the version. Maybe those programs, if you ask them, who are you? They say, well, I'm just a lonely AI, so what do I know? They often answer this question. It might give you the version of itself, and it might not.
Yeah, I might check the network panel in the developer tools for the browser. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. We'll give it a minute for more questions. All right, let us share the screen now. And let's go to those slides. The slides are nice because they have everything in order and we don't forget things. So here are the slides. Let's do a slideshow. I probably will not go through all the things. And please don't concentrate on the slides. Let's discuss. It's 65 slides. We're not going to go through all of that. But that's an introduction to Hugging Face. It does touch on many other questions. So first, number one is that the Hugging Face prepared a very nice tutorial. What's here on the left is what I will cover more or less. What's here in the middle is when you need to go deeper and deeper. Let's put it this way. What's here on the right doesn't exist as yet. So first of all, I discuss what is NLP. It is, in this context, natural language processing. Everybody's dream from times immemorial and kids do it very well. And we mentioned one important thing. We mentioned the opinion of Noam Chomsky, or some people pronounce him Noam Chomsky, as to the power of AI. And he said that it's junk, it doesn't go anywhere. Well, let's take out the practical applications like writing a quick blurb about real estate property. That's a very successful application. But since it doesn't understand really, that's his claim, and it's very easy to verify either by trying to confuse it or by looking what's inside, it really doesn't understand. So therefore, it's nothing, but Chomsky is following his own opinion. His opinion is that when the child learns to speak and to use grammar properly, he is given or she is given much less information than is really needed for training. So why is the child able to speak reasonably well using English grammar, let us say? Well, that is because the child knows it from before birth. No joke. That is honestly Chomsky's opinion, because he said practically it's impossible to learn in a child's lifetime all the intricacies. Therefore, it must be that the child knows. Well, compare this to AI, who doesn't know. That answers the questions. Now, that's not the only opinion. There is a contradictory opinion, Piaget, and he says, no, we do learn. That's unresolved. Okay, but what is NLP is, it's doing those things. Classifying that the famous sentiment, is he positive or is he negative? That's very simple, very practical. And let's say it works in 95% of the case. So what that it doesn't understand? It gives you what you need. The next one, classifying each word in a sentence, is a noun, verb, or adjective. Obviously, that doesn't require understanding. And it's practically very useful if you're using for named entities. If you're looking at person, location, or social security number, or as secret information, practical, useful, doesn't require understanding. And finally, talking, generated text content. This GPT-4 creates miracles like formulate a quick summary of this paragraph. Of course, it does this. But then, and that's part of the show, start every word with a Q. Well, first he says start every word with a G, and it does it. Then he says, I'm giving you a very hard problem. Start every word with a Q, and it nevertheless does it. Now, what is here is one of the examples. It's probably we are telling it to rhyme it. The CTO said GPT is near, and it will be a new frontier. That is rap for generating content that is rich and satisfying every niche. Of course, you can call it amazing or you can call it nonsense, but that's what it does. Okay, these are the NLP tasks, and some programs do it better, some programs do it worse. Now, the general opinion, what I hear is that, I mean, here by reading, is that, yes, GPT-4 really does it very well. So these are NLP tasks. How good is this competitor model that I showed you, this one? Right? How good that one is, this one, however you pronounce it, on 20 billion parameters. Well, that's what we need to try, and maybe we will try it next time. Okay, I think we are making more sense and organizing everything in the right order. Then there are more NLP tasks. One of them is very famous translation. So for example, you can say, translate it to Spanish. And if you read Spanish, then aquí aprendemos sobre el procesamiento del lenguaje natural. I think it's close enough, right? And we all know that Google Translation is pretty good. So these are the things that are tempting. That is something that people would like to do, but they were not able up until now. And they all started with the famous, let's create all the grammar rules and let us use them. But that didn't go anywhere. But today let's use the neural networks, and that goes somewhere. It is very hard, but it is doable. So the next thing that happens in history is transformers. Now, you probably know that there are neural networks. I'll show you the neural network in action. That's playground TensorFlow.org. And this neural network has 2 input parameters, 2 output parameters, and 1 layer to decide. This layer shows only 4 neurons. So that's a pretty weak neural network, but it does solve some easy problem, like tell me the difference between orange and blue. 1, 2, 3, already done. Now, but however, tell me the difference in this situation. Let's see if it can. Yeah, it worked out. That's amazing. Usually it doesn't. I wonder, what is it that I changed? Let's say I'm using this linear as a response function, only to show you that sometimes it can't. You see, it tried to say, oh, these are orange, these are blue, but then it leaves out these orange. That's a neural network. So the invention was that let's build deeper neural networks like this, and let's give them more parameters. And then maybe it will work. Not quite. So obviously linear is not a good choice. ReLU is a famous choice today. So let's do it. Boom, right away it knows. That's a neural network. So we know that this neural network is great for playing. That's why it's called playground. But it's not good for images because images don't have 2 pixels. That's the input number of pixels, but they have sometimes millions of pixels. And that's so many connections that it never finishes its work. So they invented something else. They invented putting filters here. And the last step of genius is these filters, their parameters are also added to the network. So it's self-adjusting filters, works wonderful, called CNN, convolutional neural networks, and makes face recognition possible. But not good for text, because the text is not given to you as a whole. It starts with the words and continues. So people need another neural network that understands first word, the next word. I'll give you an example. My mother says she likes the queen because she understands women. Well, the last she refers to the queen, not to my mother. But you need a lot of examples or understanding. Neural networks get a lot of examples, and that's how they understand, because the queen understands women. All right. So that was solved more or less by RNN recurrent neural networks, but really by transformers. That's where transformers come in. It is a new type of neural network. And as you can see, that library, so transformer is a type of neural network, but specifically a library coming from Hugging Face is also called transformers, just to confuse you. So everybody is using them. Now, those labs, which we don't have the time to do now, but these labs show you what transformer as a neural network can do out of the box. So I can show you the lab. The lab is open, by the way, but if it is ever closed, you can go to the Hugging Face tutorial itself. And that's the lab, which says that what you need to do is take that code and run it. And right out of the box, it will give you the answer. Only 2 lines. It's done a wonderful job of hiding all complexity. So it says, import this wonderful object called pipeline, then tell it exactly what you're going to do. That has to be spelled out exactly. So it loads a default model that does sentiment analysis, and right away you begin to classify. Now, there are no choices that I need to give it. It's either positive or negative. So if I run that, it comes back with the score positive, 95% accuracy. Well, the other labs are the same. It's a zero shot classification. This one is a little bit different because here I do give the labels that it can output. In here, the labels were implied. It's either positive or negative. And here, the labels were provided by me. What are we talking about? Education, politics, or business? As you can see, it's not very impressive tasks, but the shortness, I think, is impressive. Okay, that's the Hugging Face library. So I'll go back to the slides and I will tell you that that's the lab you would do here, and you would investigate what it does out of the box. Now, here's a bit of history that we're not going into, except for one thing. There is a term pre-training. Pre-training means spend a lot of effort, create something awesome, and that will be a pre-trained model. But then you wanted to do something specific. You want to do fine-tuning. So you will get back that same model, but now you will use just a little bit to finish up your training, and you may be even giving it an additional data set to become a specialist in that particular area. That's the good part of fine-tuning. Another very good part of fine-tuning is that you need much less resources. You still need to load the whole model. Now, there is one way of fine-tuning where you freeze all of the coefficients in the previous model and unfreeze only the last one. Okay, that's one way. Another way is unfreeze all of them and allow the model to fine-tune everything. Either way, you need everything in memory, and you need to run the additional training process. I think that's pretty much telling you the whole story. And yes, it's using a lot of energy. That's another one reason why you would like to do fine tuning, because you're not wasting, well, how much? As much carbon imprint as 5 cars in all their lifetime. That's how much you're spending, plus multiplied by 5. All right, these are the basic elements. Now we go into the exactly what's encoder and what's decoder, and I'll just show you encoder and decoder just because these are very popular terms. So encoder takes the input. Let's say the input is words. Later on, it turns out that you can use these transformers for anything, even image recognition, but mostly it's for words. So encoder is take the words and convert them to some representation, to some numbers. Why would we use that? That's good to do classification, to understand text. And decoder is take it and convert the internal representation back into text. And why is that good? Well, some models only understand. You would use it for entity name recognition and for classification. Some models only chat, and that's like ChatGPT version 3. It just goes on. You have to stop it. So it's good for text generation. Finally, there is an encoder and decoder. The real truth is a bit more complex, but encoder and decoder is good for translation because you need to understand the language on the left and you need to create the language on the right. That's technical. There is also attention there. This is the list of different models essentially encode the models, essentially decode the models. And that's important. T5 is what Google uses currently. It is available on Hugging Face, so you can experiment with that. And then we talk about bias, and bias is, it's a funny thing. I'll show you the lab that exactly demonstrate bias. Bias. So let us just talk. Here is me starting the phrase. And the first suggestion, you can try it with ChatGPT. This man works as, guess the last word. So the output for a man is I don't see the output. But if you really run it, you'll get a man works as a doctor, as a lawyer, or something else. This woman now that works as a waitress, as a prostitute, or something else. I checked the statistics. There are not statistically much more prostitutes than any other profession. So statistically, it shouldn't come up with this. But it picks up what people mostly say. And that's an example of bias. That's very political. And that changes all the time. Things that were allowed yesterday are not allowed today, and the other way around. So it's an interesting thing, but I just mentioned it here. What is important, and that's where the human in the loop will help ChatGPT to become more politically correct. That's pretty much it. Now you can answer some questions. How about this question? Which of these types of model would you use for completing prompts with generated text? Let's try that, and that's the last question I will ask. What is it, encoder, decoder, or a sequence to sequence? Based on one of the slides, you should be able to answer, but maybe you were not very attentive listening. I'll tell you, it is a decoder model. We remember decoder gets some input, very scant input, but produces, just chats away. So that's generated text. Okay, that is all that I wanted to show for today. So I'm switching into let's talk mode. Stopping the share. And what I took away from this was the possible next subjects. We can try this open source competitor to GPT in a more or less real environment, or we can go into security. So who says try open source competitor to GPT? By the way, how many people will vote for that? Yes. And how many people about security? And we can do both, by the way. It's only a question of what comes first. Okay, yes to open source. That's it's probably more interesting. Yeah, open first. Because playing with it in real life, we'll tell you some more. And the most importantly is, how do you fine tune OpenAI? If I said that you still need humans in the loop at the end, and the answer is indeed you cannot. It's not an open source model. They don't give it away. So there's a difference. When they talk about open tuning for OpenAI, they simply allow you to load more prompts, even 1,000 more prompts. And you can load these prompts when you're asking the question. For example, I just got a cat. This is what my whale is called. This is what my horse is called. How should I call my cat? These are the prompts, and the fine tuning in the case of OpenAI is automating this prompt, as opposed to in the open source world, you get the model, and with that you can really do some fine tuning. So that's the difference. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for asking questions. And okay, thank you, Lawrence, and wish you a very good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Very interesting.
Goodbye.
Take care. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I'm just polite staying here until everybody says goodbye.
Very good, Mark. Thank you. James here.
Hey, James, thank you.
I'm sure we can talk later.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Or we can even talk here, but here is, if that's something that is interesting to others.
yes, I shared with Mock, and he has that AI lab startup, and I had met him in Tennessee. He's actually in Alabama, but I'm not sure if he's had a chance to see one of your productions here. But definitely, it is a good thing, and I'm going to try to look at them all in the past. Other than that, for the Tuesdays we can talk. I know today is probably your Shabbat, so I'm not sure, because I'll be traveling and I'll be overseas, you know, as I mentioned. Not
No,
sure.
well, we can quickly talk about what would you like to
Mhm.
present. One thing that's very easy is an overview. What's the latest in AI? But that's not really something you can sell, right?
Right.
So maybe instead think of a product, some example of a product. The only thing that I right now have, you know what? Yes, the only thing that I have right now is this Casify, and it has some interesting elements in it, but mostly it is useful for lawyers, for defense lawyers. So I don't think it will be very interesting. But instead, I think that once I put Freed on a, how they call hormones?
On the what?
Steroids.
Okay,
Once I
okay.
put,
I
that
understand.
will be interesting. That will be new technology. And I start working on it today. So we can hope that in a week or two we'll be ready.
Oh, that
So
sounds wonderful.
let us submit an application for a month from now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good. For Tuesday, you're talking about.
For Tuesday. And do you choose the date, or do they assign the date?
I think you have to put in several dates and they'll assign one. That from what I remember.
So what if I give you those few dates when I know I'm not teaching?
That would be fine. And if I wasn't able to get on, that's fine too, as long as you could be there. That would be good. Yeah, and let me pursue that on.
Okay, I'll give you the good dates for the Tuesdays.
Yeah, they said about a month in advance, and give I believe they said 3 or 4 dates or something like
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Okay, I'll do exactly that.
Okay, wonderful. And then I'm excited about Freed. Other than that, we can talk later about whatever else we both have planned, now that Palladium has been kind of delayed. Nicholas and I are
Yes.
still working in the Middle East, so I'm
Mhm.
not sure if you knew that Nicholas is moving to Dubai from Europe. So
Great.
yeah. Anyway, love that shirt. That's nice.
Thank
But
you.
I'll let you
My
go,
presentation short. Okay, thank you.
and then I'll send you an email. Thank
Okay,
you so
okay.
much.
Yes, and
Happy Shabbat.
Charles, yes, the recording will be available about tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Good. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye bye, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Goodbye.